Kim Russo, and today on the Charleston Women Podcast, I'm joined by Sophie Orozco, a relationship coach and CEO of Sophie Orozco Coaching. After transforming her marriage, she now helps women reignite connection, rebuild trust, and create lasting love from the inside out.
This is Charleston Women Podcast, where you can meet like-minded, strong, independent, professional, and inspiring local women. This is Charleston Women Podcast.
Hey there, I'm Kim Russo, and today on the Charleston Women Podcast, I'm joined by Sophie Orozco. She is a marriage turnaround expert, wife, mom of four, and founder of Sophie Orozco Coaching. She rebuilt her marriage from the brink of divorce and now empowers women to reconnect with themselves, reignite their relationship, and rediscover deeper love. I am very excited to have you here today, Sophie, because my first deep dive into coaching was a relationship coach and never even knew about coaching before. So how did you get involved in relationship coaching? I know you have a really good backstory and relatable story to how you became a relationship coach.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that you had a relationship coach. I think my first coach was a relationship coach even before I met my husband. For another relationship that I was in that fell apart, and I found somebody even way before there was social media. And I worked with this amazing coach and actually found my husband and met my husband and thought that that was like happily ever after. We were married. That was it. All my relationship problems would be solved. And 4 kids later, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of diapers and stress. You know, at that point too, my younger sister was she had terminal cancer and she was dying, and there was just so much stress on me and on the marriage. And before I knew it, I was on the brink of divorce, separated. My husband was like, "I'm done. It's over." And there was a moment within me that I could really feel that my marriage wasn't actually over, and it was something had happened within the marriage that we had just recreated old patterns. We'd been kind of taking each other for granted. We'd had so much stress and pressure on ourselves that we didn't know how to handle. And I knew that if I could figure out what went wrong and how to fix it and how to solve it, that I could bring back my marriage. And so I went to therapists. I told them what had happened. They were like, "There's nothing you can do. Like, he doesn't want to be with you. He doesn't love you. It's over." Right. And I was like, "No, I don't think it is over. Like, I think we can fix this." I pretty much like calculated how much it was going to cost me to get a divorce. And I was like, "Oh, let me just take a year and really go like full force into marriages, try and figure them out, figure out why this happened, and try some stuff and see if I can bring this thing back from the brink of divorce." And so that's what I did. Like, little by little, I invested in coaches, courses, read every book that was out there, and I started experimenting in my marriage when I saw my husband. And within the year, we turned it from separated, could barely talk to each other, definitely couldn't go on a date without having a screaming match on the way back. Big arguments about parenting and politics and like everything we would argue about. And I turned that mess around to like better than ever, falling back in love, like happier than we ever were. And my husband moved back, and it's just gotten better since then. So
how did you get him to kind of be not complicit, but how did you get him to kind of follow your lead? Because I know the reason why I saw a relationship coach is I kept falling for these narcissists and would try to fix the relationships, try to get them to go to counseling with me or do something, and they would not. They would refuse. I'd say now, because a relationship coach, I did manifest my dream partner with all the work that I did on myself. Yeah. But you know, we're almost 6 years in and it's great, but there's things that like, hey, are we okay? Do I need to lead this? Because he's not so receptive to going to therapy or going to help or doing all of this stuff. So how did you get him, and how do you advise your clients and people in this situation? How do you get your partners on board?
When the relationship gets to the point that you're on the brink of divorce or you're breaking up, right? Then it's very hard to get your partner to go to a therapist with you because they feel like they're just going to have more of the same, more of what they've been getting in the relationship, which tends to be like criticism, control. You're not doing what I want you to do. You're not parenting, like all of that, like complaining, which essentially is what got them into the problem in the first place. Right. And I help both men and women, but predominantly I work with women. And so there's not going to be much buy-in to work on the marriage if they feel like they're just going to get more of the same, which has already been causing them pain, right? And that's why someone will want to leave the marriage or someone will want to exit the marriage because they've been in pain in the marriage. They've felt disrespected. They felt criticized. They felt like a failure. They haven't felt good enough. They never feel like they've been trying to make you happy and they feel like they're not doing it well enough or whatever, right? And so that feels so uncomfortable to them. They want to leave and be away from you, right? They'll do anything to get away from you. And so what I do is I teach people how to start to shift within themselves so they show up differently in the relationship and then their partner feels differently about them, right? And so when the partner starts to feel like, oh, I kind of like her again, or I kind of like him again, or I kind of feel that like connection that I hadn't felt in a really long time, or I want to be around them, right? Then they have more buy-in to be like, oh, like I could see that maybe things could be different in this relationship. And then they're much more likely to want to participate and be on board in turning the relationship around, if that makes sense.
In 1996, it was Southern Women to Women magazine. Now it's Charleston Women magazine. Charleston Women is all about strong, capable, confident, hardworking, nurturing, determined, dedicated, and inspiring women. Our readers are business owners, entrepreneurs, mothers, sisters, wives, and grandmothers. Pick up your copy of Charleston Women magazine at Charleston area Harris Teeters and Food Lions. Charleston Women magazine. We are Charleston Women.
You're listening to the Charleston Women Podcast.
Having kids involved, how does that affect the work too? I don't have children, so I can't relate, but so many Charleston women, so many women out there who, are at this position, they've got kids, and how do you navigate that with them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think having kids obviously brings so much complexity into the relationship. People tend to have different views on parenting styles, also just that level of stress on a woman. Like a lot of my women say that, and I feel it too, like we carry so much of a mental load when it comes to parenting, sports, what the kids have got to get, their uniform, their backpacks, their lunches, like just all of these things that we have to remember, and feeling stressed out by that, And I think that it does add a layer of complexity to the relationship, but it's also like another reason why people need to really make sure their marriage is thriving, right? And it's like using the kids as a reason to work on the marriage rather than a reason why you can't work on the marriage.
I mean, that's so important. I see it all the time with people like trying to co-parent, and one is really wanting to get back together and the other doesn't. I think going through the relationship coaching has definitely been a tremendous impact on my life, and not just in love relationships, but family relationships, friendship relationships. So you did kind of talk about how it's working on yourself first. Is that really like where you see people need to start from, and what do you see as common in people that come to you, women that come to you?
I think relationships are like a really clear mirror, right? And it's like they get to reflect back to you, especially your partner, because they're your closest person. They're going to reflect back to you what's going on in your internal world, right? And so most women will start with, I want to fix him, and then our marriage is going to be better. And this is where I see so many people being stuck for years, feeling unhappy. Like if only he would change, then I would feel differently. And it's when you shift in your internal world, when you shift your beliefs, when you can heal, right? Heal those subconscious patterns that we're bringing in, like you kind of talked about, always attracting narcissists. When you got to heal that, you were able to attract a healthy relationship. And all you did was heal internally, and then you shifted, and then you were able to experience a different person coming into your field.
Yes. So one thing I noticed with me, so I'm the middle child. So I say my trauma story is I suffer from middle child syndrome. People pleaser, always wanting to make somebody happy. And I was falling into that over and over and over again. And that's when I saw the relationship coach. I was actually moving to Charleston and was told, I was 37 at the time when I moved here, right before COVID too happened, and was told by a family member, if you want to settle down and have a deep, meaningful relationship, I've heard Charleston's not the place. There's a lot of Peter Pan syndrome. The girl to guy ratio is off. And within a month and a half, I found my person, and it was the work that I did on myself. It was creating a list of what I wanted in a partner, which originally was everything I didn't want, and had to reverse that into the positive. Really focused on what was a priority too. So at the time, I think the first thing on my list was like, do you want kids? Yes, I want someone who wants kids. Well, that do I want kids moved way down to the bottom of the list, that I realized I wanted kids because I was expected to. But the partner that I wanted, that was not the most important thing on that list. And so it kind of, joke to say that I manifested him, but it was really because I had to figure out what I actually wanted. I don't fight, because I used to say my exes, like, it's not me, it's them. And now that I know I've been in this relationship where I haven't had a real big fight, it wasn't me, it was them.
Yeah, or it was you, right? Because when you got really clear and you decided what you really wanted, then you were able to attract that person to you. And so before, when you weren't clear and you didn't know what you wanted, you kept on attracting people that kind of matched that. So it was kind of now, then when you shifted, you got to have a totally different experience.
And there's something that I've read that you have mentioned before that really I related to, and I'm sure a lot of women do, the roommate stage. My past relationship, I felt like at one point we were just roommates, like living together, working together, doing all the things together, but there was no real love. And in this current relationship, I don't feel that, but I could start to feel some of that creep in a little bit. What's the signs of that people can kind of know that you're heading in that direction? And how do you get out of that direction, and enlighten us a little bit more about what you mean by that?
So the roommate stage happens like really subtly, I think. And kind of what you shared about the expectation, like you had to dig deep, like what was your expectation about having kids or whatever. And I think culturally, there's this expectation that we're just taught, oh, like marriage gets like that, right? Like you have kids and then you don't have time for each other. And oh, it's normal, like if you get into the roommate stage. I know for me anyway, like my kids were like up here. Like my kids, like I was madly in love with my kids, and my husband was like way down on the list, right? And so when I had my kids, I gave them everything, all my time, all my attention, all my energy, and I had nothing left. And I gave some to my job too, right? And then I would go take a yoga class. But as far as for my marriage and my husband, I had nothing left. And so I was very much like, well, this is normal. It's fine. Like we'll get it back. We'll go on a date night, on a Saturday, and we'll get that spark back. Or maybe one day when the kids get older, I'll get that spark back, right? But I didn't realize just how important that spark is to keep it alive, because it doesn't just come back on its own. I work with people who have been like in that roommate stage for 20, 30 years, and they feel so awkward around their spouse. Like I'll ask them, hey, do you like send a flirty text message, And they're like, no, it's too embarrassing. I couldn't, And they're so disconnected from each other. Mm-hmm. I teach a lot of masculine and feminine energy dynamics. Mm-hmm. And polarity in the relationship, and how to keep that like juicy spark alive. Mm-hmm. And so for a lot of women, I see that unconsciously we get into our masculine energy in the relationship. So we're doing everything. We're planning, we're organizing. We essentially become like our spouse's like mom and manager, right? We're booking their dentist appointments. We're just like in that masculine doing frame. Tapping into your feminine energy, right? Like really getting back to feeling like yourself again, like taking care of yourself, going for walks, being in nature, like listening to music, having fun, like having actual fun and play with your partner, getting out of the routine of like Netflix and the same restaurant every Friday night, like doing things that you get to see them in a different way than the way that you're so used to seeing them, keeping things fresh.
So how do people work with you? What do you work just Charleston based? Do you work everybody, with this digital world and coaching being such an online space? Where do you see most of your clientele coming from?
All over the world. I work with people from England and Australia and all over the US. Completely worldwide.
So you do have an accent. Are you from England? Where are you originally from?
Yes, I'm originally from England. Yeah, I've been in Charleston for about 3.5 years. Yeah.
And do you work with a lot of people in Charleston? Are there any kind of trends that you see? I mentioned before coming to Charleston, I was told I would never find anybody. And, as a 40, young 40-year-old, I'd say in Charleston, I have a lot of friends too that are single or divorced, and hear all these stereotypes from Charleston. So what advice would you have for anybody either moving to Charleston or any females here in Charleston that are listening?
Yeah, so I've heard that too, that there's way more women than there are men in Charleston. But I think that what your story really beautifully illustrates is it's not about that, right? It's when we can think, oh, there's no good men in Charleston. It's like you can say that with any city that you go to in the world. There's no good men in LA. I hear all the time, right? There's no good men here. There's no good men there. Or you can attract an amazing person wherever you are in the world. But your belief about whether you can attract them or not is going to be what attracts them or what keeps them at bay. So I would tell anyone if they're moving to Charleston, they want to date someone, or they're living in Charleston and they want to date someone, to do pretty much exactly what you did, Kim, is to write a list of like, what are the main qualities that I'm looking for in a person? What do I want? And then to ask themselves, am I being that person that I want to attract? Right? And if you want to attract somebody that's like fun and outgoing and adventurous and outdoorsy, or a surfer or whatever, it's like, are you going outside? Are you going to the beach, right? You can't attract a surfer if you're, not putting yourself into those situations. So it's like, figure out what you want, start to become that person that already has that relationship. It's possible to have that wherever you go. Mm-hmm. And it's just easy. It's easy, like you said, to blame your spouse for why you're unhappy. It's easy to blame the city, or the place that you are if you're single. And it's not that, because you can find somewhere anywhere you go.
What's the difference between working with you or a traditional therapist? What's your take on that? Because you did mention you did a lot of therapy yourself. And I know for me, I've done therapy, I've done coaching. They're very different. And what would be the reason why somebody should come to you rather than typical therapy?
They are different. And I think that therapy, for the most part, deals with where you are today and goes back into the past to figure out why you are who you are today, which can be super helpful. And I do some of that as well. But what I'm really interested in is where you are today and where do you want to go, and how can we make a roadmap to get you there? A therapist is very impartial. They're not going to tell you what they really think, right? Whereas I'm more of like a friend, big sister vibe, like, I've been where you are, and I'm gonna share with you my personal stories, things that I've learned. I'm gonna share with you what I really think is, possible for you. And I do give advice, and I do pull people out. I want to like push people to their edge a little bit so that they can grow and have and really achieve what they want in their life.
What's the best way, like somebody could tell it's time to reach out to Sophie?
So I think if you're married and you're just not connecting and you're having the same fights over and over again, if you feel like you've got a lot of resentment, if you are in that roommate stage where you're kind of like your friends, but there's not much more than that, if you catch yourself thinking or fantasizing about getting into another relationship and you're married and you don't really want that, but you're like, oh, maybe in the future when the kids are older, I could meet somebody I really want to be with, if you start to have those internal thoughts, if you have trust issues, right, with your spouse, if you're checking their phone, if you're going through their emails, if you're tracking them in any way, it's a big sign that you need to get some help, because that just gets worse over time. And if you're just not happy, in your relationship, marriage is meant to be, marriage is tough, it's commitment, but it's also meant to be good. If you have the right tools, it's meant to actually bring you joy and happiness and stability in your life.
And how can they get in touch with you to start working with you?
Yeah, so I mostly hang out on Instagram. It's Sophie Orozco Coaching on Instagram.
And what's one big tip you can give somebody before we walk away that would help them if they're not ready to quite work with you? What's one big tip?
I had a coach, and she wasn't even a marriage coach at all. Like, I actually hired her to work with me on something completely different. But my marriage was really in a mess when I worked with her, but I didn't even talk about my marriage. But the one thing I said to her that really stuck in my mind, and I was complaining about my husband, and when he came home, he was always in such a bad mood and da 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 da. And she was like, "Well, how are you when he comes home?" She was like, How are you? How do you act? And I'm like, "Well, I'm usually pretty upset because he's always in a bad mood." And she said something to me. She was like, "Well, I would be in a bad mood if my wife was always bitchy." I don't know if I can say that online. When I came home too. And I was like, whoa, I was so offended by what she said. Like, it took me a couple of weeks to digest that. I started intentionally trying to be in a little bit more of a better mood when my husband came home, and smile at him a little bit more when he came through the door. And I could see on those days that when I did that, things were a lot better that night. And it was just the beginning of like me starting to see, because my marriage did then completely fall apart. I didn't have enough information at that point to be able to put anything into practice. But it was the beginning of me starting to see that when I change, he mirrors that. Yes. And so I would say to anyone that's struggling, but if you're not ready to work on your relationship right now, ask yourself, instead of what is he doing, what am I doing? And is there one thing that you can shift within you? And just observe what shifts when you shift. Because what you'll probably see is that he responds differently to you. And that's pretty cool to start to see.
I love that. Well, thank you, Sophie, for talking about all things relationship advice, and excited to have you here on the Charleston Women Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for spending time with Charleston Women Podcast. Please like us and follow us on whatever platform you're using to access Charleston Women Podcast.